Good morning, everyone. It is October 26th, and I want to talk about some more silly Russian rhetoric that I'm seeing coming out of the Russian government specifically. But before I do that, I have seen the comments about wanting to see operations updates. I haven't been doing them because there just hasn't been a lot of broad swath movements or taking of territory from either side. Yes, battles continue. Small towns keep continuing to be taken. The Russians continue to fight valiantly in Bakhmut, and obviously they're conducting shaping operations in Kherson region, but the official large offensive has not taken place yet. So that's why I haven't really done one. I may start doing them again with a more narrow focus on specific small battlefields and just talking about what's going on there. But the reality is why I haven't been posting a whole lot is there's been a lot of chaos of the good kind in my life recently with joining like the Planning and Zoning Commission with my local community, as well as work stuff and family stuff, all of which is good. There's nothing really bad going on, but I'm very busy, so it was harder for me. But I see your comments, and I'm gonna try and see what I can do to get some more of those smaller operations updates out. But this video is not about that. This video is about this new thought process in Russia and this new rhetoric of de-Satanization of Ukraine. Now, Alexei Pavlov, who is the Assistant Secretary of the Security Council of Russia, has called for the de-Satanization of Ukraine. Now, according to TASS, which is a Russian news agency, Pavlov said he didn't know how many covens of Satanists there were in Ukraine, but that he expected it to be in the hundreds. He said some of them were created, having been sharpened in advance for a specific purpose and a specific flock. Didn't really say what those specific purposes and flocks were, but he also went on to say others simply existed as a branch of richer patrons, once again saying that rich people are bad, and so therefore they're Satanists. He went on to highlight the fact that the Church of Satan is an officially recognized religion in the U.S., and its influence has been spreading in Ukraine since the 1990s. This is actually not true. The U.S. government does not legally recognize any religions, let alone the Church of Satan, but rather just sees these churches as tax-exempt charities or nonprofit organizations. Church of Satan is recognized in that regard, but many charities are recognized whether they're religious or not. So that's not an official stance by the United States. Now, this thought process of using religion has been spreading a little bit quicker than what previously we've seen since Putin announced the illegal annexation of territory in East Ukraine, and he accused the West of outright Satanism. In May, the Kremlin-owned news agency RIA Novosti claimed that it discovered remnants of witches' covens in Ukraine, and Ukrainian soldiers were consecrating their weapons with blood magic. They also said they found a satanic seal on a wall, which, I mean, couple things. It could have been put there fake. It could have actually been there, and the person is a Satanist. That doesn't necessarily make them a horrible person. There are people who follow Satanism in the United States, and they lead normal lives, and you likely don't even know they are. So it's kind of a silly premise. Now, the most recent thing to kind of piggyback on this was Pavlov, who I was talking about, cited the Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, who is a big friend to Putin. This Kadyrov said in a Telegram post that the Muslims and the Christians need to unite to fight against the Western push to influence the world and push back against Satanism. So I want to review the narratives real quick. So the first narrative was that Russia would be welcomed with open arms. That clearly didn't happen. The second narrative was denazification. That's absolute nonsense, and they have not found any proof of broad spectrum Nazism across Ukraine. Narrative 3 is they're fighting NATO, and that's why they're losing. And narrative 4 is now de-Satanization, because when denazification doesn't work, what's worse than Nazis? Satan, apparently. So with no convincing proof of Nazis, they're going with Satan right now. So whether this works or not, I'm not sure. Amongst the Russians and the Ukrainians who share similar religious beliefs, the reality is 80% of them are religious, 60% of them are Orthodox, 10% are Greek Catholics, 1.5% are Protestant, and then another 8.5% are just non-denominational Christians. 20% are non-religious at all. So not sure how this is going to affect the Russian population, but they need to do something, and they need to say something to try and drum up reasons for the why every time Russia and Ukrainian forces meet, the Ukrainian troops destroy them and beat them back. So what else are they going to conclude? It's got to be Satan's help, apparently. So the issue is there's a more poignant and nefarious intention here that needs to be considered. As cracks are forming in Russia's internal support amongst its various oblasts and its internal to the Kremlin and the external alliances it has, you can't deny that Russia's reliance on religious authoritarians for help is ever present, specifically Iran. There are cracks forming in previously strong alliances with countries such as Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, all of which have greater than 93% Muslim populations. So when the Kremlin talks about Satan, they're giving a nod to those nations with very religious cultures, and also those states and cultures within their own country in Russia. They're giving a nod to those, and using the rhetoric of fighting Satan creates in us pious religious Christians uniting with our pious religious Muslim brethren to defeat Satan in whatever form that is, also known as Ukraine for the Kremlin. I mean, hell, the U.S. has been the great Satan for decades to many Muslim nations, and so therefore your religious rhetoric can galvanize these people into a joint cause to fight Satan, where clearly Nazism didn't work in that regard. What's even worse is, in anticipation of the U.S. election, the Russians could be using the religious angle as an information ops ploy. They're playing on the beliefs of the more fundamentalist Christian sects of the U.S. and the West. Those that were already skeptical or even antagonistic towards Ukraine's plight could be triggered by the talks of Satanism in these countries, especially if they're deeply religious. And evangelicals and those that run in those types of circles overwhelmingly vote Republican. So it's no secret that many far-right candidates and their constituents that have said unsettling things with regard to the future of Ukraine may benefit from support for this new line of thinking. Do I think the U.S. support will go away because Russia says they're eliminating Satanists? Absolutely not. I think nothing changes in that resolve. In fact, I think it creates just more eye rolls than anything. But again, Russia is trying anything at this point. And when Satan inevitably fails as a scapegoat, you have to wonder what's next.